E36 Fanatic, Steven here. Today I'm going to do a fuel filter replacement on my BMW. You're going to need an 8mm socket, 10mm socket, and a 10mm wrench, and a ratchet of course, and you're going to need a Phillips head screwdriver and probably a flathead screwdriver. Fuel filter replacement is really easy to do, however it's a pain. You usually got to take a shower afterwards because no matter what you do, you're going to end up getting dunked on by fuel. Okay, so the first thing you're going to want to do is head over to underneath your hood in the front and take a look at your fuel pump fuse. On this vehicle it's going to be number 18. On most E36s I believe it's going to be 18. And it is going to be this blue one right here. You're going to want to go ahead and pull that one. And then once you're done with that, we're going to go start the car. Okay, so here's my little 15 amp fuel pump fuse. Let's head over here. And go ahead and start it up, and it should die here in about 30 seconds. Oh, even quicker. A lot quicker. Awesome. Sweet. Now what that does is it depressurizes the fuel system. So when we go ahead and remove the two lines that are attached into our old filter, we don't get spewed with fuel. There's still going to be a few ounces of fuel spilling out. That's because either way there's still going to be fuel sitting in this filter, and there's going to be some in the lines, but we vastly reduce the amount that's going to be coming toward us. Alright, so next thing, I'm going to go ahead and jack up the front end here and throw it on jack stands. Okay, so I got my goggles, ratchet, paper towels, and a Phillips head screwdriver, and I'm ready to go under there. Okay, here we are at the fuel filter. As you can see, it's got a hose with two Phillips clamps here and here that go into it. I'm also going to replace this little bit of hose because it's junk. It looks original. And then you got this cover right here. This is going to be the first thing we got to mess with, is this cover. You got two 8mm. You got two 8mm bolts here, then one down there. And so I'm going to go ahead and remove those. Okay, so next up, you got to remove these last two screws holding in the cover. One's right here, and the other one, if we go further down, is right here. If we go further down, is right here. So you got a total of 4, and you can remove all of these with an 8mm socket. Then here is the other two that are already removed. There and there and there. So remove these other two, and then this whole cover will go ahead and fall off. Okay, so this is where we're at now. Cover's hanging down there, and here's our fuel filter. Don't need to mess with the cover anymore until we put it back on. So the fuel filter is held in by this clamp right here. It goes around it. It's got a 10mm bolt. Once I loosen that up, then I'm going to go ahead and remove this line right here, the inlet line to the fuel filter, and then I'm going to remove this clamp right here to the outlet. And this is where you prepare for fuel. If you have a catch bucket or something, I suggest you use it, but either way you're gonna have to take a shower after changing the fuel filter. So I'm gonna go ahead and loosen this up, and I'm gonna put my phone down so gasoline doesn't get all over it. Alright, here's our old fuel filter. See, it's coming out pretty clear. I've seen really old fuel filters, when I pour them out, they come out with this really dark brown almost fuel. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove this bracket. I ended up having to remove the whole 10mm nut, which isn't a big deal. because this bracket gets really stuck to this filter. Don't forget, when putting the new one in, you have an in and an out labeled on the filter. Let's see. Right here it says in. So the fuel coming from the tank is going towards the filter, entering in on this side and then coming out on this side. Pulled off the 3 clamps from the 2 hoses that I removed from the old fuel filter, and grabbed 3 new hose clamps, and then I grabbed some 5/16 fuel injection hose, and I'm switching that little hose right here. It's actually an 8mm hose, but 5/16 will work just fine because you're gonna have difficulty finding an auto parts store with an 8mm hose. So I grabbed some 5/16, cut it to fit, and now I'm about ready to put everything back on. I'm gonna start by going ahead and fitting this back in and getting the 10mm nut back on, and then I'm gonna start attaching these hoses. Okay, got everything back on. New fuel filter. Got the little nut on there. Now I'm just tightening up the new hose here, and then the hose along that side. Got to remember to put these clamps, these lines back in. Here's a fuel line. Put that back in. Here's the oxygen sensors. I'll put those. There we go. Got the oxygen sensors back in. And before I actually put back on the cover, I'm gonna actually throw back in that fuse and run the car just to make sure that it's not leaking, that my lines aren't leaking anywhere. That's tight, so I'm gonna go ahead and tighten these hoses down and I'll be done under here. All right, I'm back on top side. Throw my fuel pump relay back in. It was number 18, I believe. And now we're gonna go ahead and start the car. Now remember, your fuel pump's gonna have to reprime the system, so you're gonna wanna turn it 2 clicks at first and leave it like that for maybe 30 seconds so the fuel pump can get a chance to repressurize the system. And then after that, you can go ahead and cut the car on. Okay, so everything's checking out. It was leaking a little bit here, but I tightened up the clamp and I think it's gonna be just fine. So now the only thing to do is put back on this cover, those 4 little bolts, and you will be done with your fuel filter.